Hey guys, Keith here with Slingmods.com. Today we are going to look at some 12 volt accessory fuse blocks for the Polaris slingshot. Now, if you own a slingshot or you're planning on getting one, you should know up front that there isn't any 12 volt signal in the front underneath the hood. Everything's in the back. The battery's in the back left of the vehicle. So if you're going to get into running aftermarket accessories like LED flags or halos or night rider lights, underglows, seat heaters, radar detectors, etc., you're going to run into a snag because you're either going to run 30 wires, positive wires from your battery terminal in the back and have this huge bundle of wire running all over the place, or you're going to need to get an accessory fuse block. Now, an accessory fuse block is a way to basically designate power to circuits. So this has been a popular seller for us. This is the FC1 fuse block. And what this basically allows you to do is it allows you to run in a 12 volt signal from your battery, ground, and then an ignition 12 volt signal, and allows you to designate how you want to power circuits like halos, RGB, and night rider lights, etc. Now this is our entry level box and has been a popular seller, and I want to briefly go over the differences between this and our new Neutrino black box. So on the FC1 you have 6 circuits that you can control, and you designate manually with a fuse if you want that to run in 12 volt full time, or if you want it to flip on with the ignition or the key. You can also pair that with physical or manual dash switches, which are going to be the OEM dash switches that Polaris uses. They're waterproof and they are going to use dash real estate. Now you only have a couple slots for dash switches on the slingshot, and if you opted for some mods from the factory, you're probably going to have either 3 or 2, even 2 slots available, which is going to be limited. So this is going to help you out with your accessories. It's going to do what you need to do, but it is still a manual procedure. So this is our entry level block. Now I want to get into what I think is probably the coolest block, or the coolest electronic mod that we've launched for the slingshot to date, and that is going to be the Neutrino black box by a company called Arboreal Systems. Okay, so here's the Neutrino black box. Now the question is here, what is this thing going to do for you? Now, if you're a smartphone owner and you have an Android or an iOS platform smartphone, this is going to be the way to go for you. This is basically going to give you complete control over every 12 volt accessory you hook up to it with your smartphone. You're going to have a free app that you download on our product page, and it's going to allow you to control all 6 circuits that are on the Neutrino, and it's going to let you control things based on speed and temperature and sunrise and sunset and minimum voltage triggers, all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and download the app, and I want to kind of just give you a quick overview of what this thing can do. Now I'm in the office here, and I've just hooked it up to a power supply just so I can demonstrate everything here within a few feet. Obviously it's going to look a little different one on your slingshot, but the principles will be the same. Okay, I've downloaded the Neutrino app, and I'm going to jam through this and just kind of overview everything because there's a lot of information. So basically, I have this hooked up to a power supply. It's going to give me what my battery voltage is in real time, my coordinates, my compass, my feet above sea level, my ambient temperature. I'm going to have a settings tab. I'm going to have a mile per hour tab, which is actually going to tell you how fast the slingshot is moving, and I have a clock that can be set to military or 12-hour, whatever you want. You can also switch between things in setting tabs like Fahrenheit and Celsius and so on and so forth. Now, one of the first things you're going to want to do when you get the Neutrino hooked up in your slingshot is you're going to want to go into this voltage meter here and click it. And it's going to let you set a global shutdown voltage. Now, what is that exactly? Well, let's say you're at a show and you have 6 lights running, and you have all those lights to run for an hour after your ignition is turned off, so you can kind of show off some of the mods you've done. However, you're slowly killing your battery as those lights are running. Well, this global shutdown voltage allows you to click it and set an alarm voltage and a shutdown voltage, so that if you forget that you left your lights on, or if you're talking to people and then 2 hours goes by, it's not going to suck your battery dry. It's going to automatically kill power to all 6 circuits on your behalf, so you can go back and start your slingshot. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do inside the app. Now inside this screen, this is basically a snapshot of all of your circuits. So I have 3 circuits that I've hooked up to this Neutrino box. I have 3 I'm not using. It gives me cumulative current draw. So I can see that I'm pulling with these 3 LED products 1 to 1.3 amps only. The Neutrino box supports up to 60 amps, which is an enormous amount of current, especially for a slingshot. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the main screen here now. So here's my main home screen. So basically it tells me that I have my Knight Rider, my LED flag, and my RGB halos on. As you can see here, I have all those things running. Now let me move the phone over here so you can kind of see it in the background. So I'm gonna go ahead and start turning things off. So let's go into the LED flag, which is on right back there. I'm gonna hit off, and you'll see that the LED flag turns off immediately. Now that's because I have it in switched mode, which is the same as a wall switch. If we want to go into like a dimmer mode, we can use what's built into the box. Is called pulse width modulation, and allows us to switch the circuit mode to variable, and allows me to hit this plus button, and it slowly increases and basically brightens the intensity of those LEDs. Now, not every LED is going to support this variable setting because some require a certain amount of power to illuminate at all, and the Knight Rider light is an example of that. That has to be switched. But you'll figure it out as you install your mods and go and mess with the settings and all that good stuff. Now, if you want to remember the settings that you set a particular device to, you can set circuit memory to the on position. If you set it to on and you turn off your slingshot and come back a week later, it's going to remember all the settings that you set for your voltage, your minimum voltage requirements, all of the, the variable settings, temperature and speed settings, which we haven't got into yet, but that's an important button to remember in regards to circuit memory so that you don't have to keep programming this thing. Okay, so now we're going to really get into what separates the Neutrino. I mean, this obviously separates it dramatically from the FC1, being that you're replacing a touchscreen environment and you're going from manual switches to an actual on and off button on a touchscreen device. Is just awesome. So that part's cool, but this part's even cooler. So if you click on the settings tab, you can name the circuit here. So we have it called LED flag. Let's just call it LED USA and hit done. As you see, it saves that. If we go back to the main screen, LED USA is now the new label for that circuit. Let's turn that back on. Now let's go into settings for this circuit. So if we click on the settings tab, we have a number of different things that we can do to attribute activities with this circuit. So let's go into the auto circuit control. Now I'm going to jam through these because there's a lot of them. So we can set this circuit to operate based on temperature, temperature plus, sunset, relay, speed, or speed plus. So let's go ahead and go through each one of those. Alright, I've created a fourth circuit here. I don't actually have a seat heater hooked up, but I want to show you how the temperature settings works, and a seat heater is a great way to do that. So let's go into our seat heater. Let's say you have a seat heater from PRP that you've added to one of your PRP seats, and your wife has a seat heater as well. You guys want to control them independently. They would be two different circuits. Let's go into settings and say I want to set this to temperature control, and I want the seat heater circuit to turn on when it hits my ambient temperature probe hits 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It will automatically turn your seat heater on to the designated percentage you want that seat heater to turn on to. Now, how does it know what the ambient temperature is in the slingshot? Well, the Neutrino comes with an ambient temperature probe, which is right here, and this comes with an extension wire that comes off the brain here, and this will fit nicely, like let's say in the driver's side footwell area where it isn't getting the enormous amount of heat that the slingshot engine puts off. As we all know, it's a vehicle that is pretty warm in the feet location. So keep this ambient temperature probe kind of by the sidebars, and it actually is very accurate. Let's look at temperature plus. So what is temperature plus? Temperature plus is similar to a setting you may have in your car that says, I want to increase the volume of my radio as my speed increases. Well, temperature plus is exactly the same functionality as that. So if we enable temp plus, we can say turn on my seat heater at 50 degrees and incrementally increase that heat as the temperature drops. Alright, let's take a look at the sunset setting. So what exactly is that going to do? So if we go back in here and we go into the settings of the LED flag, we're going to be able to set this to sunset trigger, which is going to allow us to adjust whether or not we want to turn on or off the LED flag 2 hours before sunset and up to 2 hours after sunset to a particular percentage. So let's say 10 minutes before sunset, we know it's going to start getting dark. We want to turn our US flag on to 50% power so that it allows other vehicles to see the slingshot more clearly. You can do that, and you can either turn the circuit on or you can have a circuit turn off that was already running at that time as well. Okay, let's take a look at relay input. So relay input is pretty cool and is actually, I think, going to bring out some pretty crazy custom configurations that people do, slingshot owners do. And if we were to set it to relay input, we can say when there's an input on the neutrino, when this input, which is a blue circle on here, receives either a 12-volt signal, a ground signal, or a float signal, we can trigger an action on one of these circuits or multiple circuits. So if we have relay triggered on, do we want it to be triggered? Is it going to be triggered on ground, open, or 12 volt? And if it is, what do we want that circuit to do in regards to power? So that is really cool, and that's going to be customizable. I'm sure people are going to come up with some pretty cool stuff on that one. Okay, so speed. Speed's a cool one. So let's say we want a set of lights to turn on when the slingshot hits a certain speed. So we can say enable speed, go up here and say when the slingshot reaches 60 miles an hour, turn this light on to, and I'm using light as an example because that's what I have hooked up, but it could be anything, 12 volt to 20%. Alright, so on the final one we have here is going to be pretty cool too, and this is going to be speed plus. Now this is exactly the same as temp plus, but it's based on speed. So it's incrementally going to increase as your speed increases. So let's start it at 30 miles an hour, and we have it set to 50%. It's automatically going to increase on pulse width modulation or output to that circuit as your speed increases. So let's look at the amount of current that we can distribute per circuit. So if we look at the front of the neutrino box, there's little tiny icons here that designate the amount of current that's available to each of the 6 circuits. Now that's adjustable, so we can go into the Night Rider light. So we're in the Night Rider light, we go to settings, we go to circuit breaker settings. Now I have it set to 2 amps, and the reason I have it set to 2 amps is because there isn't any reason that it needs to be allocated to the default, which was 10 amps for this circuit, because it only pulls 0.27 amps of current at peak. Now the reason I lowered it to 2 amps is because the neutrino box can support up to 60 amps of current, and I don't want to designate 10 amps to something that's only pulling 2 amps because it allows me to redesignate that current load to other circuits that might pull higher current loads. Okay, so now let's look at how do I run a circuit when the key is turned off. Let's say I am at a show and I want to run my Night Rider light for 1 hour after I turn my engine off and pull my key out, turn the ignition off. So you can go into settings and go to off timer setting. Now it's set by default to ignition switch, so as soon as you turn the key off, by default all your circuits are set that way that they'll turn off. If you want to change that, you can do one of two things. You can either set it to a delay of from 15 seconds to 4 hours, and that will allow that circuit to stay active for the duration of time you've specified in the drop-down menu. Now, if you remember earlier, we talked about a global shutdown voltage. Now, the global shutdown voltage is an override, so no matter what you have your settings to configured per circuit, that global shutdown voltage will override if you've configured it correctly on the main home screen. And that means if that trigger voltage is hit, the shutdown voltage it reaches that level, it will automatically override these settings even if you've told the circuit to run for 4 hours, because we don't want to leave you stranded. But you can tell this circuit, I don't want to set a time for it to run. I want it to run until it achieves my shutdown voltage. Definitely not recommended, because if you have your shutdown voltage set too low and you think, oh, my slingshot only needs 11.5 volts to start, but it really needs 11.8, you're not going to be able to start your vehicle. So do we have to deal with fuses in the neutrino? We do not. It's going to use a breaker system. So on the FC1 you have physical fuses. If you were to have a 10 amp fuse and you were to be running something that pulls 11 amps of current, it will pop this 10 amp fuse. On the Neutrino, it won't. It will just switch the breaker in the app, and you'll have to do one of two things. Either check for a short circuit on that circuit, or go to your settings for the amount of circuit you've allocated and make sure that you're allocating more current to that circuit than what it requires, which will be both here and on your global screen here. Now, since the Neutrino box is controlled with your smartphone, you want to make sure that your smartphone's always charged. Now, there's other ways to charge your phone in the Slingshot, clearly, but Neutrino makes it simple. If you want to add a phone charger to the Neutrino box, you can add what they call their 7th port, which takes this USB port and expands it into a Y adapter, which allows you to charge your cell phone. Now, I want to go over this USB port real quickly, because on this USB port, it comes with a Bluetooth dongle. Now, this is what receives the signal from your smartphone to control the Neutrino, so this obviously is going to be needed. So when we do the Y adapter, we're going to pull this out. Now, note that the factory USB coming off of the Neutrino box is black, and when we plug in the USB adapter, the Y adapter, it's going to go black to black, but for whatever reason they didn't color code it correctly, I don't think, because now you have to plug in the dongle to the white, which if you didn't watch the video may be confusing. So the white is now the Bluetooth receiver for your smartphone, and the black is now going to be your phone charger. Now, a lot of you guys have purchased a battery tender for the Slingshot. Slingshot's in most states it's going to be a seasonal vehicle. It's going to be away for the winter time, and you're going to purchase probably a battery tender to keep your battery fresh so that when riding season comes around you don't have to spend the money to replace your battery. Well, what's cool about that is Neutrino has included a battery tender charge port on the Neutrino. It's built in. It has a plastic inline fuse holder, and it does come with the glass fuse. The glass fuse will not be installed here, but it will be in the box. So if you want to use this as a battery tender port for the positive lead, you can do that. Now, it comes with a rubber boot on here, so obviously you're going to need to remove that to charge, but this is equivalent to a hot lead coming off your battery terminal, the positive terminal. So when this isn't in use, make sure you put this boot on, or you're going to be doing some arc welding. So a common question that we've had on this is the data for the app stored on the phone, or is it stored on the Neutrino? It's stored on the Neutrino. There's a config file built into the Neutrino, and it's updated every time your phone connects to the device. Now, why is that cool? Well, if let's say you have your phone app downloaded and your wife has a phone app downloaded for the Neutrino to control the box, you can only connect one phone at a time, but if you disconnect your phone and your wife connects hers, she'll be able to transfer all the config files to her phone app, so if she wants to control her own seat heater, she can do so. Alright, the last thing I want to cover before we go out to the garage and take a look at where we mounted the Neutrino box is, do I need the optional installation harness for the Neutrino? If you're installing it in the Slingshot, yes, you will. The Neutrino comes with 2 feet of power and ground, which is enough ground, but it isn't enough power wire to reach your battery terminal, so we include an extension for both the ignition signal wire and for the power wire that goes to your 12-volt battery terminal. If you're going to be purchasing a Neutrino black box for other applications like UTV, motorhomes, or motorcycles, things like that, you do not need the optional Slingshot installation harness. Okay guys, here's the mounting location I chose for the Neutrino black box. This is a great location. It doesn't get wet in here. There's no debris in here. It's definitely a safe zone for the fuse box. Once again, there's 3 wires that you need to hook up on this that we'll go over in the installation video, but just very quickly, the ground I'm pulling off of one of the bolts for the hood latch. The full-time 12-volt power lead comes to the positive battery terminal, and the ignition 12-volt signal is going to come off of the cigarette lighter that is on the passenger side in the glove box. You're going to go off the positive lead on that. That's going to be the yellow wire for this. Thank you so much for watching the video. I want to let you know that this product is available at slingmods.com.